Um, so this chapter 11 here is a long chapter. It's probably going to be quite boring as we go through it. I want to get through the whole thing tonight. It's 45 verses, and a lot of it is just history. And some of you, my wife in particular, hates history, so she usually tunes out when there's something that is historical on TV or whatever. I kind of like it, but in this case, it's just a lot of repetitive North and South battles, and he said and she said, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to skip through a lot of commentary and just read scripture, and I will make commentary notes as need be. I wanted to start it off with. Again, I use different commentaries that I read out of in order to do to come up with the studies. And one of the books that I use is a commentary on Daniel by Dr. John Walvoord. And his introduction to chapter 11 says a lot, and I just want to read that first, and then we'll get into it. So the long introduction of chapter 10, which we read through last week, to the fourth and final vision given to Daniel, is followed in chapter 11 by the revelation of important events, beginning with Darius the Mede. And we read about him 539 BC, and then it extends to the last Gentile ruler in the time of the end. Chapter 11 naturally divides into two major sections. The first verses are 1 through 35, which describes the major rulers of the Persian Empire, and then gives in great detail some of the major events of the Third Empire following Alexander the Great, concluding with Antiochus Epiphanes. All of these we've read about already in previous chapters, but this is going to give more historical data on them all. The entire period from the death of Antiochus Epiphanes to the time of the end is skipped over, meaning the time of the tribulation and the time that we're living in now. This is skipped over with no reference to events of the present church age. And the second section, which is verses 36 through 45, deals with the last Gentile ruler who will be in power when Christ comes in his second advent, also known as the Antichrist. So this is followed by in chapter 12 by further prophecy of the last 1,335 days, which is a period including the Great Tribulation, the second advent or second coming of Christ, and then and the beginning of the fifth or the millennial kingdom. So the millennial kingdom will be when Christ rules for 1,000 years. Then he continues, probably no other portion of scripture presents more minute prophecy than Daniel 11, 1 through 35. And this has prompted the sharpest attack of critics seeking to discredit this prophetic portion. So, as we said, as I said when we started off in the beginning of the book, that Daniel has a lot of critics. This chapter in particular is one that will bring in a lot of the criticisms, for they say that it is recorded in such detail that it had to be recorded or written after the fact. So they try to discredit Daniel and say that this is a forgery written in the 2nd century. But we will see that it's not. So then, so here in Daniel 11, it's a continuation of chapter 10, which we started last week. It continues through the end of chapter 12, and then we'll be done next week with the book. And we will break for the holiday season. Here, Daniel is given, or is being given, an interpretation of this vision by this angel of the Lord. And the theme throughout the book of Daniel has been the rise and fall of four kingdoms. And it culminates in the revived Fourth Kingdom, or the revived Roman Empire, and a coming world dictator of the end times. So Daniel 10 through 12 is the last of the visions of Daniel. These, along with the dream of Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 2, in which Daniel interpreted, they all deal with the final future empires of the world and the nation of Israel in particular. Here in Daniel 11, it's the second, like I said, the second longest chapter with 45 verses, and Daniel 2 being the longest, has 49 verses. If we combine 10 through 12, which all go together, they're part of the same prophecy, the same angel is speaking. The vision and the interpretation, they cover 79 verses. So we have the themes of the prophetic chapters. It might be a good time to recap quickly the themes of the prophetic chapters of Daniel. So we had, you might remember in chapter 2, we had Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had a dream of a statue of gold, silver, bronze, and iron mixed with clay, which represented the four final empires, the Babylonian, Persian, and Greek, and then the Roman empires. Chapter 4, there's another dream that Daniel interpreted. It's Nebuchadnezzar's second dream. It's not prophetic in the sense of dealing with empires, but it dealt with Nebuchadnezzar would be humbled. He would be cut down and humbled for 7 years. Remember, he was basically made to go insane and eat grass like an ox and so forth. So that dealt with that. We had chapter 5. We have a passing the baton, so to say, where we have our first passing of Babylonian kingdom onto the Persians. So we had King Belshazzar, who superseded Nebuchadnezzar after his passing. He was evil. And so we remember the story of the writing on the wall, the finger writing on the wall, that he had been found in the weights and balances. And basically his kingdom was over. So his kingdom had been given to the Medes and the Persians. And so we had that first transition of the Babylonians going into the second empire now, which will be ruled by the Persians. Where am I? Chapter 7 is another vision of four beasts. So we have the lion, the bear, the leopard, and then we have a beast with iron teeth. And so they're representing also kings and kingdoms to come. Nebuchadnezzar passed, of course, and then we have who was the Babylonian king, or Babylonian kingdom. We have the Medes and the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. And then also included in that vision was, remember we talked about the Ancient of Days and who this was, and it turns out it was Ancient of Days refers to Jesus Christ. So here in chapter 7 through chapter 12, it's also the languages that in which it was written has changed now to Hebrew from it just went blank. Pastor Ronnie, do you remember what Aramaic? Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't remember that for the life of me. So Aramaic was the original language that it was written in up through chapters 6, and then 7 through 12 is written in Hebrew because these chapters pertain to the nation of Israel and to the Jews. Chapter 8 is a vision of the ram and the goat. So the ram represents the Medes and the Persians. Remember, there was two horns. The second horn was longer or larger, which represented the Persian Empire, which came up later, but grew larger than the Medes. But the two of them worked together in harmony, so to say. So we have the Medes and the Persian. The goats the goat represents Greece under Alexander the Great. And then there's 4 kingdoms which come out of Greece, which are the 4 generals of Alexander when he died that took over these different territories. And then along with that comes the vision of Antiochus Epiphanes. Chapter 9, we had the vision of the 70 weeks of years, which may have been confusing. We have 70 weeks of years, so a week of years is 7 years. 70 times 7 years would be 490 years of future prophecy. 483 of those years have already been fulfilled, and then we take a pause. They stopped at the crucifixion of Christ, and then they pause until the abomination of desolation is revealed. The Antichrist is revealed during the tribulation. And the tribulation begins when the Antichrist confirms a covenant between Israel and the many nations surrounding. So there's a covenant that's already in the making at this point, and he just confirms this covenant. So, and we can see with what's going on right now in Israel and the Middle East in general that Israel will be looking for some type of peace deal, and this deal will confirm peace with the surrounding nations, and it will also allow Israel to build, we believe, to rebuild a temple on the Temple Mount. And then we have last week's chapter 10, we have this vision or an appearance of the glorious man, which may have represented Christ pre-incarnate, or more than likely it represents an angel of the Lord who is appearing now to Daniel and is going to give him this final prophecy or this vision. So if we get into some minute detail, here in chapter 11, we are presented with prophecy given by an angel from chapter 10 in such detail regarding the near future that some critics have used this chapter to form their opinion that Daniel was a forgery, like I said, written after the fact in the 2nd century. We also have in great detail prophecy now fulfilled and recorded in secular as well as biblical history. And then we wonder how could Daniel have known all this, or whoever wrote this, if it was a forgery, how could he have known? Daniel didn't know, but God knows. He knows the beginning from the end. So this is written by God through the prophecies given and the interpretations. And we know that with so much prophecy already has been fulfilled throughout history, that God will continue to keep his word and fulfill the future prophecies. So with that, let me get into verse 1. We'll just start reading through this, and I'll make some comments as we go through here. So verse 1 says, also in the first year of Darius the Mede, this is the angel speaking, I stood up to confirm and strengthen him. And now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than them all. By his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece. So we have this first year of Darius, the Mede, and this is also the same year that the revelation of the 70 weeks of Daniel in chapter 9 is revealed in. This would be the year 539 BC. It's at the beginning of the Persian administration. This divine messenger stood up to confirm and strengthen Darius. So this suggests that though the kingdoms of the world are under demonic control, their human rulers can be delivered from that control and used for a higher purpose by God as he sees fit. So here in this coming section, we have prophecies concerning the nations, some of these nations. And the scene here, first of all, is with Persia. So in verse 2, it said, 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and the fourth against the realm of Greece. So Darius, remember, under the rule of Cyrus, he's followed by a ruler named Cambyses. These are all Persian rulers in the year 530 to 522 BC. He was followed by a guy who was considered illegitimate by the name of Gautmata in the year 522. He ruled for a very short time and was murdered. In his place, there was a king named Darius the Great, who ruled Persia from 522 to 486 BC. And then we had a king by the name of Xerxes, who ruled from 486 to 465 BC. And he was considered the richest of all the kings due to his conquest and severe taxation of the nations that he conquered. Moving on to verse 3, then a mighty king shall arise who shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he is arisen, his kingdom shall be broken up and divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, but not among his posterity, nor according to his dominion with which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be uprooted, even for others besides these. So next we have, we are looking to the nation of Greece, the Greek Empire. And so verse 3 says, a mighty king who is none other than Alexander the Great. And so we remember from chapter 8 that he was the male goat with the large conspicuous horn. Verse 4, his kingdom shall be broken up and divided towards the 4 winds of heaven. So, and we know that when Alexander died, that his kingdom was divided between his 4 generals. Cassander took the area of Macedonia. Lysimachus took Thrace and much of Asia Minor, which would have been, Thrace would be like the area of Bulgaria. Seleucus took over Syria, and he will be known as the area of the north. And Ptolemy took Egypt, which will be known coming up here as the area of the south. So, so now we have another scene which is going to deal with Egypt and Syria. So this next section in verses 5 through 20 trace the various struggles between the south, which are the Ptolemies of Egypt, and the kings of the north, which are the Seleucids of Syria. And I'm not going to get too much in depth, just so we can get through it, other than to say it covers a period of history that leads up to the ruler Antiochus Epiphanes, or Antiochus IV. And the coverage shows just how precise the prophecies of God can be. And so this is a great history lesson for history buffs. A lot of this is going to be back and forth and may not make sense, but just to get through some of these verses, we will just read through them here. So verse 5 says, also the king of the south shall become strong, as well as one of his princes, and he shall gain power over him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And at the end of some years, they shall join forces. For the daughter of the king of the south shall go to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of her authority, and neither he nor his authority shall stand, but she shall be given up with those who brought her, and with him who begot her, and with him who strengthened her in those times. So the king of the south in verse 5 refers to Ptolemy the first, and one of his princes refers to Seleucus the first, Nicator, and his kingdom stretched from Palestine all the way to India. Verse 6, at the end of some years, refers to a time of around 252 BC. Ptolemy II gave his daughter, which refers to a woman by the name of Berenice, and he gave his daughter in marriage to Antiochus I. Moving on, this is just history as it's been recorded. Nothing real important, but it's there for us to show that God fulfills the prophecies. Moving on to verse 7, but from a branch of her roots, one shall arise in his place, who shall come with an army, enter the fortress of the king of the north, and deal with them and prevail. And he shall also carry their gods captive to Egypt with their princes and their precious articles of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So this branch from her roots or her descendants refers to Bernice's brother, who is Ptolemy III, and he invaded Syria in 746 BC. Verse 9, also the king of the north shall come to the kingdom of the king of the south, but shall return to his own land. So we got Syria in the north, the south is Egypt. Verse 10, however, his son shall stir up strife and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through. And he shall return to his fortress and stir up strife. Verse 11, and the king of the south shall be moved with rage and go out and fight with him, with the king of the north, who shall muster a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into the hand of his enemy. Verse 12, and when he has taken away the multitude, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cast down tens of thousands, but he will not prevail. For the king of the north will return and muster a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come at the end of some years with a great army and much equipment. So basically what we have is we're going through this, we're having a description of seesaw struggles between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies between the years 20. We're in 2023, 223 BC and 200 BC. So about 23 years or so. Just more history being recorded. Verse 14, now in those times, many shall rise up against the king of the south, also violent men of your people. So your people, he's speaking to Daniel. So your people are Jews. Violent men of your people shall exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, and they shall fall. So the king of the north shall come and build a siege mound and take a fortified city, and the forces of the south shall not withstand him. Even his choice troops shall have no strength to resist. But he who comes against him shall do according to his own will, and no one shall stand against him. He shall stand in the glorious land, which is Israel, with destruction in his power. So here it's interesting to note that the violent men of your people will exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision. So here we have Jews who initially welcomed Antiochus III as a liberator of Egyptian rule. Antiochus III, he defeats the Egyptian army. But in the end, their decision to support Antiochus III proves to be unwise when he turned destruction upon the glorious land and its people. So he in turn turns on the Jews. Moving on to verse 17, he shall also set his face to enter with strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him, thus shall he do. And he shall give him the daughter of women to destroy it, but she shall not stand with him or be with him. So sounds confusing, but in essence, and as history is recorded, Antiochus III gives his daughter, who is Cleopatra the First, in marriage to Ptolemy the fifth of Egypt in order to undermine and destroy Egypt. But Cleopatra ends up siding with her husband over her father. So Ptolemy the fifth, he dies in, I think it was 180 BC. He's poisoned. He wasn't a very popular person, but Cleopatra became the ruler after him. So a little side history on Cleopatra. Verse 18, he shall turn his face to the coastlands and take many, but a ruler shall bring the reproach against them to an end, and with the reproach removed, he shall turn back on him. Then he shall turn his face toward the fortress of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. So Antiochus III, he's annexed the coastlands of Asia Minor and unsuccessfully tried to invade Greece. He was eventually defeated by Lucius Cornelius Scipio of the Romans at Magnesia. Sounds like a stomach issue, milk of magnesia. So he is defeated at Magnesia in the year 190 BC and was forced to pay a tribute, losing everything that he had gained. He returns to his own land where he was defeated and killed trying to plunder a temple. So he ended up becoming broke. He needed money. He decides to plunder a Babylonian temple and is killed by the citizens in the process. Verse 20, moving on, there shall arise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, but not in anger or in battle. So the son of Antiochus III is Seleucus, took his father's place and heavily taxed the people of Israel. Antiochus III ruled for 37 years. Seleucus ruled for only 11 years, from 187 to 176 BC. And so with that, we have entering the picture now as Antiochus Epiphanes. We'll see this in verses 21 through 35. And these next verses will describe the career of Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who ruled from 175 to 164 BC. What a history here. And so we remember from chapter 8 that we covered Antiochus in depth. Antiochus Epiphanes here is a type or a picture of the coming Antichrist, a picture of things to come. He's not the Antichrist of the tribulation. So in verse 21, says, and in his place shall arise a vile person to whom they will not give the honor of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. So Seleucus, brother Antiochus, he rose to power. He had Seleucus, if you remember when we went over this other history, he had him held prisoner in Rome and legitimized his rule through flattery and bribery. Eventually, Antiochus had Seleucus murdered, and Seleucus was the rightful heir to the throne, to his father's throne, but Antiochus takes it, in essence, by force from his brother, and then through flattery and bribery through the people. So verse 22 says, with force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. And after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. So he shall act deceitfully. The angel's telling Daniel that the new king of the north, which is Antiochus Epiphanes, or rather the vile person, of Daniel 11:21. He would attempt a deceitful covenant with the king of the south. Of course, this would fail, and there would be a great battle that would not change. It's not going to change the balance of power, but this is just being recorded here again. Moving on, verse 24, he shall enter peaceably even into the richest places of the province, and he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. 25, he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall devise plans against him. 26, yes, those who eat of the portion of his delicacies shall destroy him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. Both these kings' hearts shall be bent on evil, and they shall speak lies at the same table, but it shall not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. And while returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be removed against the holy covenant. So he shall do damage and return to his own land. 29, at the appointed time he shall return and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For the ships from Cyprus shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return in rage against the holy covenant and do damage. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. So there's a lot to unpack here, but we'll go through it as it all falls into place. So he shall stir up his power. This is a fulfillment when Antiochus Epiphanes carried on the feud between the dynasties. He pretends friendship and alliance to catch them off guard. Despite massive efforts and epic battles, Antiochus, he did not stand, and his army was swept away. The defeat of Antiochus Epiphanes at his second campaign against Egypt is important because Egypt beats Antiochus with the help of Rome. And at the end of it all, Antiochus Epiphanes and his kingdom were under the dominion of Rome. It was recorded in a famous battle that the Roman navy defeated the navy of Antiochus Epiphanes. And after the battle, a Roman general drew a circle around Antiochus in the dirt and demanded to know if he would surrender and pay tribute to Rome, and demanded to know before he stepped out of the circle. So from this point on, it's pretty obvious that he's outnumbered, and Antiochus takes his orders from Rome, and from then on is under Roman dominion. Says those who eat at the portion of his delicacy shall destroy him. So this is fulfilled in the treachery against Antiochus IV by his own counselors. Failing in his invasion of Egypt, Antiochus returns home with only great plunder to soothe his wounded pride. When the vile person returned to his land, he would attack the land, the people, the temple of Israel. And it will be a time of great courage and great treachery among the people of God. It says, so he shall do damage and return to his own land. So this is fulfilled when Antiochus Epiphanes, he returns from Egypt. He's bitter from defeat. He's vented his anger against Jerusalem, which is already shaken because Antiochus has sold the office of the high priest, and he has persecuted the Jewish people to conform to Greek culture, as we read about in the Maccabees account. So they conform to Greek culture, forsaking the faith and the traditions of their fathers. So he's trying to make them become Greeks. Um, the ships from Cyprus shall come against him. So this is the naval assistance from the Romans who helped the Egyptians turn back Antiochus Epiphanes. We have verse 31. We're at here. So verse 31, and the forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. And they shall take away, and they shall take away the sacrifices, and there's in the place there the abomination of desolation. So we remember and we know that Antiochus sets up an image of Zeus on the temple at the temple altar. So he demands sacrifice to this image, and later he desecrates the temple by sacrificing a pig on it. And so it's a true abomination for the Jews because it brings a desolate condition to the temple, and from then on nobody could worship there. Verse 32, those who do wickedly against the covenant shall be corrupt with flattery, but the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. Those who do wickedly against the covenant. So when Antiochus turned on Jerusalem, the Jewish people are divided. Some forsook the covenant of God or with God and embraced Greek culture. And those who knew their God made a stand for righteousness in the face of incredible persecution. Verse 33, and those of the people who understand shall instruct many, yet for many days they shall fall by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Now when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help, but many shall join with them by intrigue. 35, and some of those understanding shall fall to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. So for many days they shall fall by the sword, flame, captivity, and plundering. So in his attack on Jerusalem, Antiochus Epiphanes is said to have killed more than 80,000 Jews. He's taken 40,000 as prisoners, and then he sold another 40,000 as slaves. He also plundered the temple, robbing it of approximately what could be in today's modern calculations, $1 billion. It says until the time of the end. This terror could only last for as long as God had appointed it, and God has a purpose even for such a persecution and blasphemy. So here, as we move on to verse 36, we have a shift in the prophecy, and we have entering the picture is the Antichrist of the tribulation. And so, remember, Antiochus is a type of Antichrist, and he's represented a picture of things to come of the last 7 years of the tribulation. So here we have this shift in verse 36 in the prophecy from Antiochus shifting to the Antichrist. So verse 36 reads, then the king shall do according to his own will, and he shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished, for what has been determined shall be done. So he shall exalt and magnify himself above every god. So the angel here is explaining to Daniel that this king would blaspheme God and exalt himself until the wrath has been accomplished. And what has been determined shall be done. Above every god, here we see this shift from what was fulfilled with the Ptolemies, the leaders of the south and the Seleucids of the north, to what will be fulfilled in the Antichrist, which is, will be fulfilled with this final world dictator. Daniel is told that this revelation pertained to the latter days. So here in Daniel, here in 1136 begins to look more towards the final world dictator, who is sort of a last days Antiochus, if we get that picture of Antiochus Epiphanes. We know that everything about the prophecy was not fulfilled during the career of Antiochus Epiphanes. And Jesus in Matthew 24 specifically said that the real abomination of desolation was still in the future. Remember, he refers to Daniel 9:27. The Apostle Paul also, he paraphrased this verse 36 in reference to the coming Antichrist when he says, "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshiped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 3 and 4. Antiochus Epiphanes is important, but mostly as a historical preview of the coming Antichrist. And this is why so much space is given to describing the career of the evil man, because he prefigures this ultimate evil man coming. Antiochus, if you're looking at a movie, he's kind of the movie trailer, which is released well before the Antichrist, who is going to be the main feature. It says he shall exalt and magnify himself above every god. So Antiochus Epiphanes certainly did this in the general sense that all sinners oppose God. Yet he's remained loyal to the Greek religious tradition, which revered the entire Olympian pantheon. He's not setting himself up in the temple to be worshipped as God. He's setting up Zeus. So he puts this this statue of Zeus in the temple, not of himself. And the statement will be far more precisely fulfilled in the Antichrist, who sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. It says that he shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished. The Antichrist will do much damage, but he is still on a short chain, and will only work into God's plan. God's purpose will be accomplished. Remember, the tribulation is 7 years, and he really does his persecution in the last 3.5 years, the second half. Daniel, let's move on. Verse 37. So he shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses, and a God which his fathers did not know. He shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. And thus he shall act against the strongest fortresses with a foreign God, which he shall acknowledge and advance its glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. So he shall regard neither the God of his fathers nor the desire of women. So I hear a lot of there's a lot of speculation on what this can mean. There's several different ideas. So based on this, some Bible scholars believe that the Antichrist will be of Jewish descent in regards to the God of his fathers. Perhaps that he will be homosexual in the sense that he doesn't have the desire of women, and these things may not be popularly known about the man, but they may be true nonetheless. Many commentators also believe that this phrase, the desire of women, refers to Jesus in the fact or the idea that at the time of the book of Haggai was written, that all the women desired to be the honor of bearing the Messiah, of being the mother of the Messiah. So if we're saying the desire of women as being the mother of Jesus in that sense, it makes the most sense in light of the flow of the context that we're reading here. He shall honor a God of fortresses. So the Antichrist will be or will take and hold power with military might and the shrewd use of great riches. Verse 40, at the time of the end of, at the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. So this is a backdrop, or the backdrop rather of this verse and the remainder of the chapter of this covenant with the king, or rather the Antichrist, that we read of in verse 36. He will make this covenant with Israel. And so if we go back to Daniel 9:27, it says, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, which is 7 years. But in the middle of that week, at the 3.5 year point, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. So the time of the end, refers to the period of time just before Christ's return. This is the period of the tribulation, or rather the Great Tribulation period, which we have read about many times in Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse. Moving on, verse 41. He shall also enter the glorious land, which is Israel, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand. So these following countries will escape from his hand, which is Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon, which is modern day Jordan. He shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. And he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury and destroy and annihilate many. And he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. So he's out plundering, he's making war, and he hears this report. This is the Antichrist. He hears this report of invading armies coming. So he is turned around. The angel is describing to Daniel a confederation of kings coming against this great leader, with a battle in and near the Holy Land. So the king of the south, it says, the king of the south shall attack him. The king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind. We don't know prophetically who they're talking about. The identification of the nations, it's kind of difficult, but you can get an idea that the south will obviously Egypt is of the south, but it may also represent the Arab community. The king of the north may be a Russian alliance. We have the kings of the east, could be China, Japan, India. So the East Asians. We know from Revelation 16, verse 12, that the Euphrates is dried up so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. The The precise points may be cloudy, but the general idea is clear that the end will be marked by great conflict, culminating in the world's armies gathering in the promised land to do a final battle. It says, yet he shall come to his end and no one will help him. So in the end, the Antichrist is basically on his own at the end. There's no one left. It seems like a lot of these nations have turned against him at some point, whether they all were part of him in the beginning of the tribulation. That's not known, but it seems like some of the nations would, particularly Russia and China, which have their own idea of world domination, may have not pledged allegiance to the Antichrist at some point. So in the end, there's an army. This threat of these armies are causing the Antichrist to return to Israel, and he's making his headquarters between Jerusalem and the Mediterranean. And somehow these armies will suddenly unite together in battle against the Lord. So the Lord will be returning at this point. These armies that are coming against the Antichrist and against Israel are suddenly going to unite, and they will end up fighting against the Lord at Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon in the Valley of Megiddo. He will come to his end at the hands of the victorious returning Christ. So Christ is coming, and it's recorded, the Battle of Armageddon is recorded in Revelation 19, 11 through 21. If you want to go there. But I mean, that's basically the gist of chapter 11, which is just a lot of history. And it's prophecy that has been fulfilled other than this coming Antichrist portion. And we will find out more about that next week as we finish with chapter 12. And we will finish chapter 12. It's fairly short. And then we will go over and just kind of do a quick recap of the book of Daniel. So that would be it for